Hi, my name is Felicia Gill. I'm one of the ARCS staff members here, and I want to welcome you to this free online workshop about healing and empowerment. What if I told you that every struggle you've been through in your life, any betrayal or loss or hurt or hardship, has all prepared you to be uniquely gifted to help others? Society looks at emotional sensitivity like it's a liability, as if it's a bad thing, but it's actually a gift once you know what to do with it. Most people just don't understand how to translate the signals that your emotions are sending. Feelings actually give us vital information for how to make empowered decisions. Emotional intelligence is actually the least acquired form of wealth on the whole planet, but it makes the most difference in our lives. Without it, we're doomed to repeat whatever patterns we grew up in or adapted to along the way. Until we gain self-awareness and emotional skills, we really have no choice but to react as a product of our conditioning, instead of being truly free to engage in our relationships and to create our lives in a way that matches our deepest fulfillment. And many of those defense mechanisms that we start to develop along the way to try to avoid pain, it's understandable why we cultivated them, but that doesn't change the fact that most of them do not serve us very well. They just don't work for us. You know, back in feudal times, like Game of Thrones times, it was readily understood that if two kingdoms waged war, whichever one was storming the castle usually lost. After all, the castle has the advantages of its walls, its moat, its drawbridge. It had more defenses. But at a certain point, the attacking army got wise and thought, instead of placing ourselves in danger by storming the castle, let's just form a wide perimeter around the outside of the castle and keep any food and water from getting in. We'll just be patient and we'll starve them out. And that's exactly what our defenses do to us most of the time. You can build an impenetrable wall around yourself and your heart, and you may even keep hurt out for a time, but you'll also keep out all the love and support that you need and deserve. You can easily begin starving behind your own fortress. This type of backfire phenomenon is usually one of the key features in any maladapted relationship pattern that's just not working for you, whether it's with friends, family, colleagues, or romance, or all of the above. The isolation and deprivation that we withstand to try to protect ourselves from behind our walls directly contributes to continuing the patterns that we don't want in our lives. Think of it like this. If someone tries to diet by starving themselves, then they're more prone to reach for junk food when they finally do eat because they're just so depleted. In fact, their survival mechanism will make sure that they reach for those cheap carbs for some quick energy, because by definition, starving people just can't afford to be very choosy. And this same principle applies to emotional starvation and deprivation of our internal needs. It's a natural, instinctive reaction to build a wall around myself when I've been hurt. But this actually increases the odds that by the time I finally lower my defenses to seek the love and connection that I need, I'll be susceptible to making bad choices. Starving people simply can't afford to be discerning because they're continually in survival mode. And in case you have a history of abusive or otherwise toxic relationships, as I do, and as many of us at ARCS do, please know that abusive personalities can sense when someone is starving. They look for that, and they'll present themselves as whatever you need most to lure you in before revealing their true colors once you're already hooked. So what's the way out? Well, you'll come to find that usually before people seek any kind of coaching or counseling, they've tried everything else. They've read books, they've perused blogs, they've watched videos on various issues, and they can usually tell you all about their patterns, but they still can't seem to change them. And that's because the roots of our patterns have actually been programmed much deeper than our intellectual knowledge. Our patterns are usually driven by a set of false beliefs. Let me give you a few examples. Most people define addictions by their respective behavior, right? Like a person who drinks alcohol uncontrollably is called an alcoholic. And a person who loves others at the expense of themselves is called a codependent. But if an alcoholic tries to just stop drinking to preserve their health, or if a codependent tries to just say no to prioritize their own needs, while this change strategy may show limited promise in the short run, it will ultimately be short-lived, because alcohol is not what causes alcoholics to drink. There's some false perception that precedes the drink, like this will solve my problems, or I'm more creative when I'm drunk, or this time I'll only have one. And the same is true for codependence, the compulsive drive to empathize with and care for others while not being able to connect or register any of that same compassion, validation, and supportiveness for yourself. It stems from false beliefs like, I don't deserve love, or I have to earn love by proving myself worthy first, or I have to be perfect to be lovable. And even if you delve several layers deeper into patterns like domestic violence that I'm also a survivor of, and so are many of others at ARCS, you'll find that it's exactly the same cycle. After all, we call addiction substance abuse. And you'll come to find that an addict thinks and talks about their substance or behavior of choice in exactly the same way in which a domestic violence victim talks about their perpetrator. They feel an emotional connection to them. They keep trying to extract their needs from them. They romanticize the good times and they make excuses for them, even as they're being beaten down, whether physically or emotionally. And by the way, physical and verbal or emotional abuse all hit exactly the same pain centers in the brain. So while they may have slight differentiations, they're essentially the same devastating experience. And while many pathological abusers may have come from trauma, it's actually a defect in their neural wiring in the brain that causes them to not be able to experience empathy or to take accountability. So while abusers and victims might share similarly traumatic histories, they are not in any way the same. Also, pathological and narcissistic abusers, whether physical, sexual, emotional, psychological, verbal, financial, spiritual, any other form of abuse, whether it's overt or covert, blatant, subtle, it's all abuse. And they use tactics that mix positive and negative stimuli. So they'll respond favorably sometimes and abusively at others, making victims confused and making victims always able to recall better days somewhere in there. And this adapts the victim to the false idea that they must somehow endure abuse in order to earn access to getting their natural needs met. So the reason that someone can intellectually know that something or someone is not good for them, but still can't seem to change their patterns, is because the roots of these patterns are formed much, much deeper than our intellectual minds. They're embedded in our emotional mechanisms, in our instinctual drives, and even in our bodies and our nervous system. Most often we adopt these false beliefs about ourselves when we're children, in the formative years of development when our intellectual brain hasn't even formed yet. And even in high functioning and well-adjusted families, there can still be subtle needs that go missing and messages that can congeal into false beliefs, like the idea that I have to meet a certain set of expectations in order to be loved or approved of, or that I have to take on responsibilities that are not mine in order to be good or approved of. And society also plays a role in this embedded conditioning. After all, we live in a world that tells boys that they shouldn't cry and tells girls to be pretty in order to be worthy. Everyone at ARCS is a survivor of something. Some of us came from overt childhood or domestic abuse, but many others simply never got the emotional skill set that they need to truly honor their internal emotional experiences. And then by virtue of that, to be able to claim and walk in their own truth, whatever that may be for each person. The ARCS program very gradually teaches you how to identify the beliefs that you've been taught about yourself and about the world, so you can then decide what you want to keep and what you want to toss. And this frees each person up to enjoy a destiny based in choice and creativity rather than in conditioning and reactivity. It's almost like you start out in the shallow end of the pool and gain practice with new emotional skills. And once you have your floaties and your flippers and your snorkel and your mask, you're exploring deeper waters easily because you have the tools to know how. The first part of the ARCS program is called the Healing Journey, and it involves a combination of two parts. Our online video lessons teach you how to garner vital information from your feelings and experience them from an empowered stance. So you learn how to not only acknowledge your feelings and validate your feelings, but then transform them into empowered action on your own behalf. They teach you how to realign your natural empathy and compassion towards yourself so that in addition to feeling compassion towards others, it also registers not on an intellectual level, on an instinctive level, like almost a maternal or paternal level for yourself, actually caring about your own feelings and your own needs. Teaches you how to draw and maintain effective boundaries, how to heal from past wounds, how to reinstate primal security to offset fear and anxiety, how to build and fortify your self-esteem, how to rewire those instinctive drives towards healthy patterns that you actually want in your life, and how to enhance all relationships as a byproduct of that internal healing. Let me read you just a bit of what our members have said about their growth through our video courses. I spent years trying to change my husband, but once I changed, he really had no choice but to keep pace. I was that person who could never stick to my boundaries. Amazingly, I find boundaries easy today because I feel a deep sense of appreciation and protectiveness toward myself. It's like my feelings and caring also see me now, and I'm making up for everything that I didn't get in my childhood. It's so empowering to know that no one can ever take this knowledge and these tools away from me. Not only do I understand myself much better, I've learned to understand others by deciphering what made them treat me the way they did. I'm able to see people within the context of their own patterns. ARCS helped me to feel worthy to leave an abusive relationship of 19 years. Today, me, the one who used to cower, walk on eggshells, and apologize when I'd done nothing wrong, I've tapped into my own power. I no longer doubt myself, so no one can manipulate me like that anymore. Today, I surround myself with other people who are like me. They're loving and compassionate. This includes my ARCS family, close friends, and my fiance. The ARCS experience taught me so many things, and it's quite difficult to elaborate on it because it's also comprehensive. ARCS never made me feel like one size fits all. The videos introduced me to so much information from so many different disciplines and on so many different levels, then encouraged me to explore and discover what works best for me. I've ended up with a full and well-balanced emotional toolbox, the one I never got but always needed. I share my ARCS lessons with my children, and I've come to realize that while they inherited some of my dysfunctional patterns, now they're also inheriting all of my awareness and healing. While you're venturing through ARCS videos, you're also attending live online classes with your coach and fellow students. Online classes provide an emotionally safe environment to share about what you're learning and how you're incorporating new skills and awareness into your life. It's hard to describe ARCS classes, but suffice it to say that this is not your average, boring, intellectual online classroom environment. ARCS classes are loving, welcoming, dynamic, inspiring, and authentic. Because at its core, ARCS is a family of survivors who are walking through our own personal emotional healing process and then helping others along that same journey. Here's what some of our members have had to say about their online class experiences. I remember my first class with ARCS. I raised my hand and shared my story, and I was met with validation, acceptance, and encouragement, including others who shared after me and let me know that I'm not alone. Words are powerful, and that stayed with me. I think back to that first evening, and little did I know that I would find a place where my life story would be accepted without judgment, and that my life experiences would become my tool to help others. I had so much shame in my story, but now I've started to feel that my struggles and the wisdom that I'm getting from them are actually a strength. In class, I make a point to invite others to feel that way too. Every week when I go to this safe space that my coach has created, I honor myself for choosing this journey. I was glad that my coach didn't push me into talking about my experiences. Each student only turns on their Zoom meeting camera or microphone if they choose to. In fact, ARCS is all about introducing you to your natural right to choice in your own life. My coach welcomed me to the class and let me hear other classmates discuss their issues. And by listening to my classmates that day, I realized that my abuse history is nothing to be ashamed of. I realized that I'm here to work on myself in a supportive, protective environment. It was a little nerve-wracking to attend my first ARCS class, but I'm so glad that I did. My coach was very welcoming and helped me to feel comfortable. And it soon became very evident that everyone was on the same journey, genuinely seeking and encouraging. It's just a much higher quality of connection than what you experience in everyday life. This program has been very supportive of me since the first day I started. My coach is very supportive to me and all of my classmates. For me, it's crucial to have support and to be able to learn at my own pace. Even my closest friends have no idea of the constant self-criticism I go through, the fear of saying something wrong, or even of expressing my true self. But my coach and classmates understand what I'm going through. I've spent most of my life being more isolated than involved, often choosing to stay home over going out in groups or being with friends. Doing this work has shown me how I've been scared of people on one level, all the while pretending I'm fine. It blows my mind how I continue to override those feelings, not address them, and interact in the world as if everything was hunky-dory. I look forward to every week's class and the quality of relationships that I'm experiencing. The weekly classes are gold. Firstly, hearing my coach's story has opened up different places in myself for healing. And with her guidance, as other participants share their stories and lives, I see the depth that trauma has had on our whole society. It was always so easy to see the ways that dysfunction shows up in others while staying blind to how I wasn't always participating in my own life in the most healthy way. But now I'm not walking alone anymore, and this has made all the difference. I must say that this journey is amazing. I've been to therapy in the past, but this is something different. I just didn't feel like I got as much out of therapy. I felt like something was missing there for me, and ARCS has definitely filled that void. I've gained closure with past hurts. I see almost every aspect of life differently, and I'm at peace within myself. I look forward to having classes every week with my coach and my fellow classmates. Even though we're all at different places in our ARCS journey, we're all growing and becoming stronger together. Like many online counseling groups, ARCS offers women's classes, men's classes, and LGBTQIA class options so that mutual identification can flourish and learn masks can come off. Some people prefer their Zoom meeting camera on while others prefer it off. Some people prefer to listen in ARCS classes while others prefer to share. But everyone benefits from helping each other through challenges and from witnessing each other through transformations. And while advancing through our video lessons and attending online classes during your healing journey, you're not just trying on different skill sets and perspectives in your own life. You're also learning how to effectively impart them to others. So after completing your healing journey, you'll receive 2 nationally accredited life coaching certifications designed for private coaching practice. ARCS life coaches enjoy the same benefits that therapists do in much less time, working from home, setting their own hours, and helping their clients online from all over the US. The CARC1, a certified addiction recovery coach, is for specialized work with substance and behavioral addicts and with their family members. But the CARC1 also sanctions you to help anyone who wants to change their emotional and behavioral patterns, whether they're an addict or not. And the CARC2, a certified abuse recovery coach, is for specialized work with childhood abuse survivors, domestic violence survivors, and other trauma survivors. And the CARC also sanctions you to help anyone who's struggling with the daily pressures of life, with grief or loss, with current or past wounds, or with any emotional or relationship patterns and stressors. Some of our CARCs are also therapists, and they'll tell you that even when they spent 6 years plus at university and got their degrees, the school wishes you well and basically says, congrats and good luck in building your practice. But ARCS sees you through that too in our coaching journey. The support of your coach, your classmates, and our staff at ARCS stay with you as you venture into coaching others. And just like in the healing journey, everyone in the coaching journey gets the space and encouragement they need to explore what works best for them. We've even had some graduates report that they don't want to coach right now because they're taking great care of themselves for the first time in their lives, and they want to keep focusing on that. Some CARCs volunteer, others opt to incorporate coaching into their lives on a part-time basis. But by and large, most CARCs choose to build their practices into rewarding full-time careers. And I'll tell you that this does not happen overnight. It can take about 1 to 2 years to follow the ARCS coaching journey formula, but we have CARCs on our platform who are making over $100,000 a year, all while helping others to transform their pain into purpose. Our mission is to provide a pathway for both emotional and economic empowerment for anyone who wants it and seeks it. ARCS isn't just an online counseling center or an online certification school or an online business building program. It's all of the above. ARCS is a movement based on the premise that the foremost thing that you need to guide others through the emotional healing and restoration process is to have walked it yourself. ARCS may seem like a coaching certification program with an emotional healing component, but it's actually an emotional healing program with a coaching certification component. At our heart, we're each invested in our growth, awareness, and continual transformation. And from that seed, everything internal and external in our life changes.